Yo, yo, yo. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Canary Cry News Talk live stream pre-stream. Thank you for being here. We are going to get the show started in just about a minute or so, but we got a great show for you. We're going to be quick, fast, snappy today. We got a lot of things going on, a lot to cover, and not a whole lot of time. So thanks for being here. As a reminder, YouTubers, you're going to need to follow in another location to catch the second half of the show. So keep that in mind. Go to CanaryCry.Party to find our other locations. Other than that, just a reminder, the Canary Cry supply drop cutoff is on Monday. So this is your last sort of weekend to sign up for that. Thank you for everybody who is signing up for it. We're very excited about this first run at it. Let's see. Anything else to remind you guys of? I'm not really sure, but it's not too late to support the show. If you want to become a producer today, you can go to CanaryCryRadio.com/support, of course. And other than that, I think we're just going to do the show now. You guys just want to do the show now? Let's just go ahead and start the show. This is going to be great. We might be a little early, but we got to get going. Okay, stay hydrated. Let's go.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. We are live to tape on February 25th, 2022. This is episode 451, and today, Poots in Ukraine. Razzle dazzle. I'm your best buddy, Basil.
And this is Gonz, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ. Welcome to the podcast where we bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. And I'd like to apologize right at the top here. Whatever I had, the sickness, a couple days ago, my whole family has now. Yeah, it was not good. The family has it, so I feel less prepared for today's show. So if things get messy, I just want to apologize ahead of time. And
been rough.
And we're going to keep it brief and short because, it's just World War III breaking out. What else are we going to say? Like, there's not much else to add.
Yeah, and you've got your own crisis over there.
Yeah. There's a whole
at the house.
Yes, depending on the size of the world that we are referring to. Yes, there are all kinds of things happening. Lots of resets.
So apologies. We're going to keep this show a little bit shorter than usual, but luckily there's just enough to cover to make it happen, to make it important enough show to jam through it. So we're stoked, and we're going to start off with the obvious, our lead story, the World War III breaking out. But first, because of the current setup of this show, Gonz,
yes,
I think we should go ahead and hit that Friday jingle now.
Okay.
It's Friday, It's Friday, It's Friday. It's Friday,
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, there you go. We can keep playing with the Friday thing. That's right. It's Friday. We're here. We're making it happen. And yes, you may have heard Russia is getting a little squirrely.
You may have heard.
I don't know if you pay attention or exist in the world, but if you do, you may have heard that Russia has begun the invasion, and breaking news has been reported all over the internet and cable TV and beyond. And the industry is aflame with important news, breaking news, the chance of a lifetime for news organizations and reporters to make their name known by covering this globally, relevant, globally explosive event, a part of their lineup. And let's go now live to CNN, Gonz. Let's check out the action.
Air raid sirens ring out in Ukraine's capital.
Wow. CNN got the Chiron there.
And a little bit of chicken fried.
Here on Friday night. That's Applebee's. It's an Applebee's commercial.
What just happened?
There is nothing that gets me more stoked for Applebee's than the existential threat of nuclear war. And yes, for those just listening, that was a sort of a weird moment on CNN where there was no reporters talking. There was nothing. They were sort of leaning into this very tense moment with a panning over the skyline of Kiev there, and just letting the text on the screen and the sounds of the sirens and the Chiron. I'm trying to pull it up here, Gonz.
It says air raid sirens ring out in Ukraine's capital.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And, yes.
And then just out of nowhere, and we're going to take a break. Or, here we go. We're going to check in with our sponsors.
Just the twinkling of an eye, it was Applebee's.
Just a hard cut. Not even to a full Applebee's commercial, went to a commercial break. It is a picture-in-picture window. On the left-hand side of the screen is the big title, Russia invades Ukraine. And they have the live stream of the Ukrainian air horns, breaking news, live CNN coverage continues. Applebee's on the right-hand side. It was just an extraordinary moment in cable news television. And I'm so happy that it came from CNN. I mean, you can really tell they're starting to get their act together over there.
Somebody at Applebee's in the marketing team is saying that was my idea right there. I should get paid extra money. Great timing.
It is such a beautiful example of the state of our news industry, where
if you're new to the country and you don't know what the mainstream news really is about, you can just watch this and
feeling down about the apocalyptic world war breaking out right in front of our eyes, and the sort of macabre scene of a gray Ukrainian skyline undertoned by the triggering sounds of simply the alarm clock of death ringing over the world as we wait. Well, come on down, get a little bit of chicken fried from Applebee's. 2-for-1 chicken deal, and get yourself a couple of Coors, baby, because we're going to war.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, that's it. Let's move on. That was fun. Okay, take us through some of it, guys.
Okay, so there's some tweets out there, and I don't know the level of credibility. These are just people that claim to be there. This one was interesting. Francesca Ebel, correspondent at AP, Tunis correspondent at AP, and she tweeted out, "I'm in the north of Kiev where Russia is continuing to bomb the neighborhoods. So Russia is continuing to bomb the neighborhoods. This is the bridge that Ukraine blew up today to prevent the advance of Russian tanks. You can see people fleeing the city on foot, scrambling over the ruins. I watched as a man dragged over his bicycle."
Yeah.
So it just, I don't know. So the thing is, to me, it feels like in this moment, it's very, very difficult to know what's real, what's not, what's happening in real time, what's old footage. Half the news scroll you see on Twitter and stuff is like, oh, the footage used was not the footage that it was claimed, fact checkers say. Like half of it is that now, which is ridiculous. But
this is a classic maneuver. I mean, this is a classic move, blowing up your own bridges to slow down the enemy.
Right.
So, I don't necessarily have a reason to doubt that this would happen. It is sort of used as first of all, it shows the desperation. I mean, they don't do this unless they are serious about about the invasion coming in. So,
but if there are air raids and stuff, like wouldn't a broken bridge wouldn't matter if they're flying over?
Well, they're doing it for the tanks, baby. They don't want the tanks cruising in. Yeah, because then the Russians will have to build their own bridge, one of those little military floating bridges,
right?
Which is common, but it slows them down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, pretty sort of dramatic scene there.
Right.
We've got this Wall Street Journal article here coming in.
Yep.
And loading slowly. It's archived.
Yes.
And it goes like this. Ukrainian capital rocked by explosions as Russia intensifies attack. Now, this is something that's been reported a lot. You know, you're hearing a lot about these explosions. There's explosions going on. They're not necessarily, I mean, there was some talk about air raids. There was some talk about other stuff, but mainly just explosions. Let's see what's going on. Russian forces renewed bombing Ukraine in the early hours of Friday morning. The central Kiev rocked by explosion. With central Kiev rocked by explosions after President Vladimir Putin ordered an offensive that he said was aimed at toppling the government. Oh, so Vladimir Putin says this is aimed at toppling the government, according to Wall Street Journal. It's been interesting because, of course, he at first was like, oh, we're just going to liberate these separatists regions. We're just going to do some peacekeeping. Overthrow the government.
Right.
According to Ukrainian news outlet Liga.net, Kiev Mayor Vitaly Klitschko announced that 3 people had been injured, one of them critically, when a rocket fragment hit a residential building in the city. The building is on fire and might fall, Mr. Klitschko said. Quote, horrific Russian rocket strikes on Kiev. Last time our capital experienced anything like this was in 1941 when it was attacked by Nazi Germany. Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dmytro Kuleba, said on Twitter, quote, Ukraine defeated that evil and will defeat this one. Earlier, President Volodymyr Zelensky and Ukraine had sustained 137 dead and 316 injured on Thursday. He said Russia wasn't only striking military targets, but also civilian sites. Roughly 100,000 Ukrainians have been displaced, according to estimates from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Ukrainian officials and said Russia had attacked on a wide front along the country's frontiers from Belarus to the north, Russia to the east, and Russian-controlled Crimea in the south. By nightfall, Russian forces captured the now-defunct Soviet-built Chernobyl nuclear power station, the site of the world's worst atomic energy disaster and the surrounding exclusion zone. Oh no, they've taken Chernobyl, Gonz.
Well, yeah, that's part of the northern part, right? And they're sort of cruising down by that river.
That's what Russia wanted all along. They just wanted Chernobyl back.
Right.
They miss it from their Soviet days.
They need to stake claim of their mutant creations there.
I was going to say maybe there's some mutant communities with special powers.
Yes.
The White House said it had credible reports that Russian soldiers are holding staff at the nuclear site as hostages. The White House said that. It had credible reports. Yeah. Okay. Videos posted by Ukrainian authorities showed evidence of fierce fighting around the country with downed aircraft and damaged tanks and armored personnel vehicles from both sides. President Biden called Mr. Putin's move an unprovoked, Biden, come on, attack and said the U.S. would impose new sanctions on Russian banks. Ooh, got him. The country's elites and its largest state-owned enterprises ramping up Washington's efforts to punish Moscow. Quote, Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences, Mr. Biden said during a speech at the White House Thursday afternoon. The Ukrainian leader earlier had said Russian attack at Chernobyl risked a new radiation leak and called it, quote, a declaration of war against the whole of Europe. Yeah, well, he would want Europe to get involved here. He urged Ukrainians to take up arms. Now, this is an interesting, let's keep reading here. Quote, we are defending our freedom, he said. We be ready to support your state on the squares of your cities. Did you hear this announcement?
No.
He's basically calling for civilians. They were just passing out guns to civilians in Ukraine. they're not even just relying on the military. He's like, yo, this is our moment. If you want a gun, just come ask for it.
Wow.
Just your government passing out guns. What a cool what a cool country. The offensive, for which around 190,000 troops were massed around Ukraine, amounted to Mr. Putin's most aggressive move to redress what he views as Russian losses since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War, and the expansion of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the European Union towards Russia's borders. And this brings this is the one sort of paragraph that mentions like Moscow's or Putin's motivations and kind of just moves on. Of course, we've talked about the economic reasons for this. But NATO, the inclusion or the at least the threat of NATO, including Ukraine, was also a big part of this. You know, you think of Russia, they've pretty much just taken loss after loss for about 100 years. They haven't really had a whole lot of wins. And the one thing that they've been really serious about is not including Ukraine into NATO, because NATO traditionally has been sort of an it's basically was created in part to keep Russia limited, to limit Russia and their ability to
expand westward,
and do whatever. And so
take over the world.
Yeah. And so a part of what really escalated this whole thing was Washington and the rest of NATO bandying about the idea of including Ukraine into NATO. Because if you're a part of NATO, then you're kind of like
you're on the other team. You're on the wrong side.
It's choosing a side, and you can pull from NATO resources. NATO allies have a responsibility to defend you, and if you go to war, they have to join with you. It's like a whole thing.
Are they like the prodigal son? Like, we let you go, or we're gonna come back, but more forceful?
You're talking about Ukraine?
Yes.
Well, part of the reason why they're so worried about Ukraine is because Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania are in NATO. Those are the other former Soviet regions, and they got their independence from the Soviets and then were introduced into NATO. And they're kind of the front lines as far as the NATO alliance. They're the front lines of Russia. And the one sort of country that was formerly Soviet that is not in NATO, I believe it's the one, maybe besides Kazakhstan, if that counts, at least the one standing in the way of Europe is Ukraine. And so, Putin has been saying for years and decades even, like, do not let Ukraine into NATO. And then suddenly, the past few years, there's just a lot of talk about letting Ukraine into NATO, which has precipitated into what we're seeing now. But to move on, Moscow's assault presented the U.S. and its allies with a test of their unity over how to respond to Mr. Putin's challenge to the global balance of power. The U.S. has promised harsh economic sanctions, but Mr. Putin has leverage too. Russia is a major supplier of energy to Europe. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the UK would work with other Western countries on sanctions that he said would hobble the Russian economy. Quote, "We must also collectively cease the dependence on Russian oil and gas that for too long has given Putin his grip on Western politics," Mr. Johnson said. And it goes on and on and on and on and on, talking about, it's got some personal interest stories, talking about how the shelves are empty, ATMs are empty. It's a whole thing. People are pushed from their homes into other places. But we will see here. I was going to skip down. Yeah, I'll just skip down to the conclusion here. Ukrainian lawmakers passed emergency legislation on Wednesday to allow Kiev to prepare for a Russian attack, with Mr. Zelensky's political rivals putting their grievances aside and closing ranks in the name of defending Ukraine's independence. Quote, "Ukraine above all, as long as the risk of invasion remains, we are taking a moratorium on anything that undermines national unity," former President Petro Poroshenko, Mr. Zelensky's main rival, said in an interview. Quote, "The Ukrainian people are showing unity. The Ukrainian society is showing unity. Ukraine's responsible statesmen are demonstrating unity. And there you go. So it's a big deal, man. I mean, this is
what's going to happen. Wow.
You know, and I got to say, I am extremely surprised that it happened this quickly and the way that it did. You know, we've been hearing the rumblings from the CIA mainly through the White House. Of course, the false flags and the this and the that. I did not think it was going to happen this soon. Biden was not joking when he said, I think this is going to happen in a couple of days. So, yeah, it is a developing situation, to be sure. And, I don't know. We've got a lot of things to look into.
Yeah. It's the implications, the layers of this is pretty intense. There's just no time, and we don't have enough time to cover all of it. There's so many things that you can address with this. I've read some Bible prophecy talk, you know, Putin being one of the princes of Daniel, but we won't dig into that.
And just to list some of the layers, you know, a lot of what we were talking about previously was economic, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which was one of the first targets for sanctions and has been put on hold indefinitely at this point. So that was definitely part of the layer. Another side of it is, you know, economically in a response to the rising inflation globally, the falling markets globally, the ramifications, the economic ramifications of COVID, which, you know, a small world war would certainly cover up and make people forget about why exactly the inflation is happening in the first place. So that definitely helps ramping up. You know, I've done long segments about the military industrial complex, where when you've expended, you know, a lot of the traditional economic options for recovery, the only way out for America, at least, is war. You got to fire up the military industrial complex, and that is one way
to weapon making.
Right. All sorts of things. I mean, when a war is going on, every industry is impacted. There's a slowdown on petroleum consumption. And so it's one way to hide, you know, sort of mistakes, economic mistakes, and also another way to bolster some sort of growth, or at least hide have justification for some of the economic things going on. So that's part of it. And then in the way of gas, you know, there's definitely a great reset aspect of this, which is oil went up to $100 a barrel this morning. And
I know.
Yeah. So gas is going to be extremely expensive.
I almost hit, for the first time in my life, a full tank of gas was $95 the other day, 2 days ago. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, California.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, my goodness.
A lot of places in California are already above $5, but I would not be surprised to see $6 a gallon. So, you know, another part of that, for great reset purposes, is, $6 a gallon for gas. Well, looks like you better buy an electric car. Looks like you better get solar. Looks like you better become more green, folks. So there's layers and layers on this, which we'll be unpacking, of course, over the next few weeks. But what do you got next?
This is thanks to Sir Sigrah the Beast for letting us know about this one. This is from Yahoo Finance, and the headline here is, some of the most popular Ukraine footage is actually a video game. Arma 3, a video game that is in the right circumstances can look pretty realistic, has a long history of turning up on news broadcasts as being either confused with or intentionally used in place of actual camera footage of real world events. That trend is continuing in the current crisis in Ukraine.
That is so funny.
As Bloomberg reports, some of the most viewed videos on Facebook's gaming channel today were a number of clips purporting to be of military action taking place in Ukraine, quote, watched by more than 110,000 people and shared more than 25,000 times before they were taken down by Facebook. The same videos also circulated on other social media, including Twitter, and there's some examples of clips. I mean, we get the idea. We don't have to stick too long on this one, but
no, it's funny. I mean, again, our biggest concern on this show is the news, how they craft our reality, how they, lie or propagandize or whatever. And it's hilarious.
Here's what's the thing that the gap between things that are actually happening and the people. This is what I noticed sociologically from, when I was first saved. I was starting to see this happen around me, which is that, and now it makes more sense in, post-pandemic, people are sitting there isolating, they're in their homes, it's more, you got to be more isolated, whatever. And in that state, you're much more susceptible to whatever information comes in about what's happening in the world. It just is what it is, whatever feed they get. There's no way of verifying, So in that sense, anything can come in and be like, oh, wow, that's crazy. That kind of weaponry is out there or whatever, which is funny about this video game. But I don't know. I would talk about an age of deceit is all I got to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got a couple Biden clips if you want to hear what he has to say, our president has to say about this.
Just a quick little, just some small little updates here as we go, because news just keeps breaking.
Yeah, news keeps rolling in,
Yeah. Just a little bit of some updates here. A NATO response force has been activated for the first time ever as a defense measure to reassure allies on Russia's border. NATO for really the first time since it's been created.
Formed,
it has is actually testing out this idea of their sort of military.
I mean, they needed a reason to do it. They've had it there for a while. It's never been activated, so it's like why not? Why not now?
Yeah. Well, now's the time to check it out. And then Chinese state media said that Putin and President Xi Jinping spoke on Friday. Putin agreed to open negotiations to end hostilities. Don't know how those two things are connected, but okay.
There's other ways it could be connected. It's got to do with our president here. This is him talking at a press conference yesterday. President Biden, the aggression cannot go unanswered.
Putin has committed an assault on the very principles that uphold the global peace. But now the entire world sees clearly what Putin and his Kremlin and his Kremlin allies are really all about. This was never about a genuine security concerns on their part. It was always about naked aggression, about Putin's desire for empire by any means necessary, by bullying Russia's neighbors through coercion and corruption, by changing borders by force, and ultimately by choosing a war without a cause. Putin's actions betray his sinister vision for the future of our world, one where nations take what they want by force. But it is a vision that the United States and freedom-loving nations everywhere will oppose with every tool of our considerable power. The United States and our allies and partners will emerge from this stronger, more united, more determined, and more purposeful. And Putin's aggression against Ukraine will end up costing Russia dearly, economically and strategically.
Why is he so hard to follow?
I honestly zoned out there for a second.
He's so hard to follow. No, it's not you. I'm telling you, this is part of it. It just kind of lures you to sleep. He's kind of slurring. He meanders. There are words that aren't clear. There were a couple words in there that, depending on what he says, kind of changes the trajectory of what he's talking about. And it drives me crazy that this is our president and he's signing papers.
He
sanctions.
Sounds like he's falling asleep.
This is. Oh man, I don't want to spend too much time looking for that spot.
No, that's okay. We can just move on. But it is fascinating. This whole thing about the sanctions is an interesting aspect of our world, like the current world order. Yeah, like the current world order after World War II. War is not supposed to be about gaining land, gaining geography, gaining control of another location. I mean, war is just supposed to be about, economics. You're supposed to, go to war and use it to somehow economically, changing
the flow of money.
Yes, a generative action for money purposes. It's for, financial conquering. That's what every war, at least that the U.S. has been involved with, or any major democracy. It's just like, yeah, you don't really go to war unless like you need some oil or you need to push somebody around and you need to do that.
Well, the U.S. is sitting in a nice spot too, in terms of NATO. Geographically, they're kind of the furthest away, so it's sort of like,
oh yeah, no.
like you guys initiate military over there. We'll just kind of sign some papers over here.
Well, see, and that's the point about the NATO response force is that the U.S. is not going to put boots on the ground,
right?
And nobody probably will, and if they do, it'll be under NATO. They're not
under
U.S.
NATO,
troops; they're NATO troops.
Yeah.
So, it's not necessarily a war between the U.S. and Russia. It's NATO and Russia.
Yeah.
But these economic sanctions are hilarious because that is the way, current New World Order wars are fought is economically. But it's interesting that Putin just doesn't care. He just does not care. He's not playing the game. He's breaking those norms.
It appears Putin has rolled out the big guns, like literally. And in comparison,
in a New World Order sense,
yes,
it's a really stupid move, because by doing so, he's just bringing the wrath of the economic war machine against him with sanctions and sanctions and sanctions. But he just doesn't care. He's on his own game, man. It is. Well, I loved how Trump said, from a real estate perspective, Putin's got a great thing going.
Sweet move. Yeah, no, I saw the New York Times article talking about Trump sides with Putin, divides Republicans. It was like, oh no,
sides with Putin.
Side with Putin. This is President Biden. Responding to the sanctions here. So talking about the sanctions.
Did you underestimate Putin? And would you still describe him the way that you did in the summer as a worthy adversary?
At the time, I made it clear as an adversary, and I said he was worthy. I didn't underestimate him. And I've read most of everything he's written. Did you read? I'm not being a wise guy. You heard the speech he made, almost an hour's worth of speeches, why he was going into Ukraine. He has much larger ambitions in Ukraine. He wants to, in fact, reestablish the former Soviet Union. That's what this is about. And I think that his ambitions are completely contrary to the place where the rest of the world has arrived.
You're confident that these devastating sanctions are going to be as devastating as Russian missiles and bullets and tanks?
Yes, Russian bullets, missiles, and tanks in Ukraine.
What?
Yes, I am.
In Ukraine, specifically. That's the weirdest thing. Again, I don't know. It just makes me sad, but also laugh.
Yeah, I mean, it
doesn't get any better as we go through here.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Let's just keep moving.
Okay, well, again, it doesn't get any better. This is New York Times. U.S. officials repeatedly urged China to help avert war in Ukraine. I feel like this headline has changed, but let me just read a couple paragraphs here. Over 3 months, senior Biden administration officials held half a dozen urgent meetings with top Chinese officials in which the Americans presented intelligence showing Russia's troop building up around Ukraine and beseeched the Chinese to tell Russia not to invade, according to U.S. officials. Again, this is like it's like a high school drama playing out right before our eyes. Each time, the Chinese officials, including the foreign minister and the ambassador to the United States, rebuffed the Americans, saying that they did not think an invasion was in the works. After one diplomatic exchange in December, U.S. officials got intelligence showing Beijing had shared the information with Moscow, telling the Russians that the United States was trying to sow discord and that China would not try to impede Russian plans and actions, the official said. The previously unreported talks between American and Chinese officials show how the Biden administration tried to use intelligence findings and diplomacy to persuade a superpower it views as a growing adversary to stop the invasion of Ukraine, and how the nation led by President Xi Jinping persistently sided with Russia, even as the evidence of Moscow's plan for a military offensive grew over the winter.
Yeah, this is just sort of anti-China propaganda, basically.
Yeah.
Again, not that it's untrue, but they actually thought that they could ask Xi to like tell,
I know.
yo, Xi, tell your boy to step off. Tell your boy to settle down, man. It's like, oh, I'm not his dad, man. I can't tell you. I can't tell him what to do. China benefits from this probably more than anybody, probably more than Putin, for years now. The U.S. has been focusing, when you talk about military power and presence of the U.S., we've been shifting focus to Asia for years, especially in our naval capacities. We've pretty much had our strongest naval presence in the Pacific and stationed around Asia. And it's pretty interesting because that's one of the slowest military, presences that is. It's the slowest to move around. It's the slowest to get from one part of the world to the other.
Right.
It's very difficult to do. We had our naval buildup in the Pacific for years now, and suddenly we do have very little naval capabilities in Europe. Not none, and nothing that is really a problem. But this is a great distraction. If anything, this is a wonderful distraction for China to pull some attention away from them as far as naval capacity in the Pacific, because, how great would it be if the U.S. Thinned out their naval fleet in the Pacific to go respond to this, which they probably won't do. Yeah. But then it would open up an opportunity for China to get into Taiwan.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I thought too. It's kind of an ability for, I can see China playing this.
They definitely have a long-term thing.
Yeah. Well, we've known this about the elite and people in China. This is generational. But there's a conquest sort of promise family type of thing going on, and I guess they act on it at certain points. But
it's funny because like, Xi, tell your boy to settle down, and Xi's like, this was my idea. Why would I tell him to? What are you talking about? So I think this is mainly just propaganda, which is effective propaganda, I think, because it's helping people remember China exists and not to get too caught up in Ukraine. But there's always something behind it.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye on everything and comment on things as they break. I'll go over our desk here. We already covered this. NATO response force activated for the first time. I think that was the last thing I had here. So do you want to just take a quick break? We're early.
Yeah. Well, hold on. We got stuff to do first. Sorry, I'm on a different part of our document. Zoom. Okay, I'm back. Well, why don't we jump into this NATO thing just for a second?
Sure.
Just comment on it. We got a couple minutes.
Yeah.
This is coming from CNN, so it's fun. Yeah. We got to see what CNN's got going on. NATO response force activated for the first time. For the first time, the NATO response force has been activated as a defensive measure in response to Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. NATO Supreme Allied Commander.
Supreme
Allied Commander.
Sounds
General
like a taco.
Yeah. Well, listen, look at how long this is. NATO Supreme Allied Commander General Todd Wolters activated the multinational force consisting of land, air, sea, and special operations forces from the allies that can deploy quickly in support of the NATO alliance. The activation of the response troops does not mean that any U.S. or NATO troops will go into Ukraine, which is not a member. U.S. President Joe Biden, except for we do know that they are going into Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden has been clear that U.S. troops are deploying to Eastern Europe to help bolster NATO countries nervous about Russia's aggressive actions, and they will not be fighting in Ukraine. Quote, and this explains the presence of American forces in places like Poland, Hungary, Lithuania. Quote, this is an historic moment and the very first time the alliance has employed these high readiness forces in a deterrence and defense role. They represent a flexible, combat credible force that can be employed in multiple ways, and we are utilizing fully their inherent agility. Ooh, they're like little ninjas. Wolters said in a statement, quote, these deterrence measures are prudent and enhance our speed, responsiveness, and capability to shield and protect the 1 billion citizens we swore to protect. Whoa, 1 billion. The force has not yet deployed, but is on standby. It's not clear how many troops the response will contain. I wonder if this came out. There's an update to this. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Friday that the alliance still needed to do more to put pressure on the Kremlin to bring an end to military aggression in Ukraine. Quote, "We must stand ready to do more, even if it means we have to pay the price." What? Do more? What price? Because we are in this for the long haul, he said. Quote, "We have to take this seriously, and that's exactly why we are now deploying the NATO response force for the first time in a collective defense context. The entire NATO response force is 40,000 troops, but Stoltenberg did not say how many would be activated, telling reporters, quote, "We are deploying elements of the force." In a message released Friday morning, Zelensky thanked NATO for its support, but urged the alliance to do more, lamenting the fact that Ukraine was left to fend for itself. Quote, "We are alone in defending our country. Who is ready to defend us together with us? Honestly, I don't see any," Zelensky said. "Who is ready to give Ukraine a guarantee of joining NATO? Honestly, everyone is afraid." Yeah, nobody wants to let you into NATO. Sorry, buddy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what a sticky situation Ukraine is in. Yeah. So it's kind of a big deal. This whole NATO thing's been going on for a long time, and for this to be the very first time to have their forces actually deployed is an historic moment, like CNN said.
Yep.
I do want to just make a quick note, Gonz, and respond to a lot of the social media stuff that's going on around about the Ukrainian biolabs.
Yeah,
you heard about this? You seen this? You heard about
I saw
this?
The rumors. Yes.
Yes. I've a lot of people have been sending this. We appreciate that. I got a bunch of links open here. We're looking into it. The theory is interesting, and it's going around quite a bit. The theory more or less states that the U.S., has a bunch of secret biolabs in Ukraine that it may or may not be working on creating, bioweapons. Now, something to keep in mind with this is that Putin himself, for years, has been talking about how the U.S. is using Ukraine to build bioweapons to hurt Russia. And so it's a bit of like straight up Putin propaganda for sure. But that is not to say that there's no truth to it. I think it's interesting how there's like a parallel between the U.S. has biolabs in Ukraine and they're going to get us here in Russia. And so that's one reason why we need to bring Ukraine back into our empire, this type of thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, Twitter just went down. My Twitter just went down.
Ooh, I'll check mine.
And you can kind of compare that to the Wuhan lab, the U.S., has blah, blah, blah. And China was saying that about COVID, too, was that, the U.S. made COVID and it came from a military lab and things like that. Now, there are social posts going around about U.S. biolabs and how the location of these biolabs, seems to line up with the attacks or the explosions. Yeah, the locations are kind of line up with the Russian invasion, but also explosions going on around the country. But I did do some digging and tried to find some official stuff that could be, resources for confirming this sort of thing. I was not able to do that yet. This is certainly something we'll be looking into more. But it is true that the U.S. has been funding Ukrainian biolabs. So the U.S. is not that I can find from a legit source. I cannot find that the U.S. owns or built or operates any labs in the Ukraine, or in Ukraine rather. But similar to Wuhan, the Wuhan lab, the U.S. does and has funded a lot of these biolabs. do I have any reason to think that they do or do not create bioweapons either way? No. I mean, it's a U.S. funded lab. There's a pretty good chance that there's some research on some pretty dangerous stuff there. And, if it's funded by any way.
So is Putin kind of doing thank you for all the development, and here, we're going to take it. We're going to take all the information.
I think he's, I mean, it's that's the thing. A lot of this is happening in social posts and blogs and kind of like off kilter outlets. And there's a lot of different messages coming out. One of them is, the U.S. has these biolabs, and Putin is is invading Ukraine specifically as retaliation for potential bioweapons created by the U.S. to try to take Russia down. That's one thing. The other thing is, that's the main thing. But a lot of it is coming from Russia. Like, that is straight up coming from the mouth of Putin.
Right.
That these are American labs creating bioweapons, and so we're gonna go, take Ukraine. But he can't say that from, the podium. So of course it's just for people in the know. So I do want to let everybody know we are aware of that. We got to look into it more before we make any firm statements or anything. But there are already some inconsistencies between what can be independently verified and a lot of what's being passed around.
Yeah, and Russia being one of the first countries we ever even talked about with the 2045 immortality agenda.
Right.
That was a Russian mogul, Dmitry Itskov, and I'm sure he's sanctioned now. I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Could be one of the elite billionaires that is not allowed to do business with the West.
Almost certainly sanctioned. Yeah.
So, hey, sorry, we're not going to be part of the Great Mind upload in 2045.
So, anyways, there you go. There's just we'll be looking into all this more. This is all really new, stuff, and we just want to be diligent,
cover all the things, but yeah, we haven't been able to go deep on anything. Today anyway. But yeah, it's I think fine. I think people understand that stuff's going on, and there's a lot of fear being peddled, and it's our job not to sway with that, but just to kind of stay even keel. And
it's all happening very fast, and it's very recent, so that we'll be keeping track of it. And feel free to send us any information that you'd like us to look into. I'll take any leads that I can get. And with that, Gonz, why don't you tell us about CanaryCry.Party?
CanaryCry.Party. Ooh, you're throwing me for a curve now.
Moving it around, baby.
Oh, okay. All right, hold on. It's not as fast as you'd like it to be.
Oh, no.
All right, here we go. CanaryCry.Party. Go there. Find the live stream email list, street team posters, other Canarians, and all the ways you can produce the show and join the Canary Cry family.
Welcome to Canary Cry.Party. It's the place you wanna be. So say, welcome to Canary Cry. Gameplay, CanaryCry.Party.
That's right. So you YouTube viewers, remember, you'll only be getting half of the show today. And you will want to follow us in another location. You can find those locations at CanaryCry.Party. Check it out. I will do just a quick pitch. Go listen to Ravel podcast on any podcast player. It's a project I do with Dr. Christopher Ryan Gates, exploring scripture, society, and scandal. Go check it out. Thank you very much. We got good episodes coming out recently. And with that, Gonz, it is Friday, and here we are. Time to check in.
It's Friday.
There you go, we can keep playing with the Friday thing.
It's Friday.
There you go, we can keep playing with the Friday thing.
Short version.
What was that? Oh, that's the short version. Fun. Okay, well, we know, Gonz, we know you're having troubles over there. Everybody's sick. Everybody's barfing.
Yes, it's been quite the last couple days.
You're tired.
Laundry has been yes, it's been very interesting. But yeah.
Laundry has been what?
A deal. I mean, you think it's the last time they throw up, but then it just keeps happening. So Go
Throw
through a
up
lot
laundry.
of stuff. Throw up laundry.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. All right. Well, you have anything else you want to share?
No.
Okay. I'm still wearing my...
I'd like to get through the show so I can get back to the fam.
We're doing it. We got to get you back to the fam. I'm still wearing my pink show shirt, speaking of laundry.
Great.
And we do want to take a second and thank some executive producers of today's show. So let's do that, everybody. This show is on the value for value model. We don't do any advertisements, affiliate codes, nothing like that. None of that easy stuff that media outlets can use to fund themselves. But we've decided long ago that the advertising industry is some sort of dark leviathan inhabiting the minds of men and controlling the economics and sometimes even the spiritual development of the masses, the populations. Indeed, it's an industry that is focused on subtly manipulating your psychology in order to define your reality. And in response to that reality, tell you what you can do, the money you can spend to make reality better for you so you can be a happy, fulfilled, independent human being by just spending a little bit of money on the products of our fine sponsors. And that's why we don't participate. Because you're human beings living lives with real hearts and minds and souls and things going on. You're not simply a economic unit to be exploited for our own personal gain. So the value for value model means that we create value. We do it 3 times a week. And if you get any value out of what we do, you can put value back in. Not just can, but it is literally the only way that this show continues. So if you get value, put value back in. It is it's really sort of a rebel cause. You know, you think about Star Wars, you got the Empire, that's the advertising industry. Then you got the rebels, baby. The rebels are the value for value people who will not let the empire of advertising decide the value of their independent media. Instead, it's our producers who do it. And that's what they are. They're true blue producers. It's not a gimmick. It's not a fun game. I mean, it is also that, but it's for real. These are people who are producing the show, and we like to thank them, starting right now with our executive producers today. Yes, that's right. We got executive producers on the morning of World War III. These are the people who decided that supporting this show was an important thing to do in the world we're moving into. So if you think that it's also important, you can follow their lead. But I want to give a big old thanks to 2 of our executive producers today. That is Hannah G. and producer Morph.
Thank you, Hannah G. And thank you, Morph.
That's right. You are officially executive producers of this episode of Canary Cry News Talk 451.
Where'd you find this?
It's a weird number, 451.
I know. It's Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah.
It's I can't think of any funny portmanteau, but, you know, it's like World War III. It's heating up. Fahrenheit 450. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Hannah G. and more for supporting the show. We will thank them again and the rest of our producers in the break, which is coming up soon, but not quite yet, because we got a quick Flippy update.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
That's right, folks. Flippy is our colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. And who knows, in this new era of the end of the world, perhaps we can even be friends. But we use talking about Flippy as a way to explore all the new, fun, and exciting ways that robots are taking over the world, and just how there's nothing we can do about it. Today, Gonz, I thought we could use a little bit of a lighter touch.
Yeah, with World War III breaking out and meat life.
You know, the robot wars we'll get back to that.
Well, this is a more subtle war that the robots have waged on humanity.
Right. This is coming from Yahoo.com, and the headline is Swiss fondue robot out to cause a stir in Paris. Switzerland's national dish is fondue. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Your national dish is melty cheese? That should be our national dish. Switzerland's national dish is fondue, a simmering pot of heartwarming melting cheese that can be prepared, stirred up, and served by a robot, thanks to some high-tech wizardry. Gonz. Wizardry.
Yes.
A Swiss team has been beavering away on... Beavering. Gonz. The dots are all connecting. Wizards, beavers, Canada. A Swiss team has been beavering away on Bobot, or Boobot, the robotic creation putting a futuristic twist on an alpine tradition. Outside in the Rhone glacial valley, bisecting Switzerland's southern Wallace region, crisp mountain air blows down from the glistening snowy peaks. Next paragraph. They just do a little, Sound of Music scene setting there for us. But inside Workshop 4.0's headquarters in Sierra, below the Crans Montana ski resort, the air is hot from Boobot's whirring servers and thick with the smell of melted cheese. The robot is set to make its grand debut at the Paris International Agricultural Show, one of the world's major food production trade fairs, which runs from February 26th to March 6th. Ooh, what a date. The World War III is just starting. And they're like, ooh, can we still show everybody our cool cheese robot? Yeah, we might as well. We take our chances.
Well, the world does seem to just keep on trucking here.
The world needs some melty cheese. Yeah. Boobot is for demonstration purposes only and is far from appearing in kitchenware. Don't eat this fondue. It's not ready. This is just for demonstrations. The entire project cost $250,000 to 300. I'm sorry. The entire project cost 250,000 to 300,000 Swiss francs, with the robot arm alone costing 80,000 francs.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Oh, what do they do with the other money? I guess just give it to people. Cheese Passion. Workshop 4.0 co-director Nicholas Fontaine, 30, who wears a black baseball cap reading Cheese Passion, said Boobot had been nearly 2 years in the making. Quote, we wanted to do a project that combined innovation with Swiss tradition, and fondue was the perfect choice. Fontaine told AFP. For the Swiss, fondue is emblematic. It's something very emotional, too, because of it's part of our identity, our know-how. And there's the rub, Gonz, getting the robots involved in our emotional lives, our identities. Our identity is wrapped up in the melty cheese, and we're just letting some robot come in and take control. Quote, fondue is something convivial. It's a nice opportunity to draw people in and talk about robotics and how it can be used. Cheese propaganda. Whether at home, in a restaurant, or in an alpine cabin, sharing a fondue remains the heart of Swiss social life. Boobot is named after the Boobos, teenage boys who spent the summer up in the mountain chalets helping herdsmen while they took care of making cheese. Then they have a whole bunch of tech specs about exactly how good this robot is at grating the cheese, stirring the cheese. You learn a lot about fondue in about 10 paragraphs here. But part of it is they do talk about how the robot can pick up a metal spike, pierce a head of bread, swipe it around the jar before placing it in a holder for fondue lovers to try the gooey cheese drips down. So it's a spike-wielding, a spear-wielding robot hand. Keep that in mind as the robot takeover happens. Then it ends with this, Rise of the Robots. When seeing Boobot at work, some onlookers are thrilled by the future possibilities for such technology. If this robot can stir cheese, think of all the other things it could stir, while others worry about machines encroaching into the human sphere. Quote, the effect I find the most interesting is fear. That fear of being replaced by something more powerful, Eamon told AFP. Quote, robotics should not be to the detriment of human beings. It should help humans. Quote, it could help someone cook in the future. It shows that it could be done. For people who can't do it themselves, watch it with it run through With each run-through, Eamon spots tiny modifications to make, requiring yet more slabs from the cheese-stuffed fridge. Quote, I can't just work with a 3D simulation like I could with a lot of industrial processes. I have to do a real test, the 35-year-old said. And with every fondue made, the end result must be eaten quickly. Quote, I think I'll never be sick of fondue, but there are times when I just can't stand the smell of cheese in here any longer. Oh no, this robot is already turning this fine man against cheese. It's destroying the traditional part of the Swiss social scene. There you go, Gonz. The most interesting part for me was just how passionate this robot man was about, giving the robot the ability to participate in the emotional heart of Swiss culture, the social, the campfire almost. They don't gather around a campfire in Switzerland. They gather around a big pot of cheese. And it's just another example, again, of the sort of ambient emotional takeover of the robots. Of course, the easy thing to talk about is how they can kill us all with just a swipe of their spike holding hand. But more importantly is this global technocratic campaign to identify robots with the emotional and spiritual lives of human beings. And that's how they'll get us, Gonz, in the end.
Well, they certainly are doing it through food.
This robot is making fondue into fondant.
Well done.
Thank you, little England. Okay. Anything to say for yourself, or are you done?
I don't know. I have a family emergency situation, so
okay,
I might have to pull the plug. I don't know if you want to keep going or if this is just like we have to just roll all this onto Monday, and I really apologize to all the producers who came in because this is not what I planned. Yeah. In terms of time wise, but it's not looking good at home.
If it must be done, if it's you're saying you need to run out the door right now.
Yeah, like right now. So
all right, folks. Well, I mean, I would love to do it, except for I can't have any control of your computer.
I know.
I'm trying to think. Like I could run through the break, but I have no jingles, and also I have no control over the stream. I guess I could control it on Restream. I could turn it off.
You can turn it off on Restream. However, yes, in terms of turning off OBS and my computer and stuff, that's a whole thing. Yeah.
Well, this is a great example to let people know that we are making some technical changes. We've mentioned that about a month ago. And part of those technical changes is I will have the ability to take control in a moment like this. So this is a good example of what we will be able to avoid in the future. I'm having a hard time seeing an alternative because I can't control anything. So there you go. Sorry, folks. It's an emergency.
Gotta do the fam.
Emergencies are emergencies. We got to do that. Okay, and that's part of the benefit of this being our job is when there's a family emergency, you don't have to get fired for it. But I will say,
producers might fire me.
No, producers will understand. Producers, they're good people. They know what's going on. All right, folks. Well, sorry about this, and we know you understand. We wouldn't do it unless it was an actual emergency. So we're going to have to end the stream here. All producers from today's show, we will be transferring you over to Monday. And we'll make up for it. We'll make up for everybody.
It. Yeah, we'll make sure you guys are taken care of on Monday.
We'll take care of everybody. So that's what is going on. You got 2 minutes for an outro here?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just wrap it.
All right. So we're gonna wrap up the show. Thanks everybody. Sorry about this emergency. We got to pull the ripcord here, but we'll be back on Monday. That is the 28th of February. And so make sure to put that on your calendar. If you haven't done it yet, if you want to make sure to get the alerts, because people are not getting alerts to the live streams. If you want to get the alerts, text the word Canary to, wow, I do not have the stream up. There it is. Text the word Canary to the phone number 877-740-3226. That will put you on our text message list. We send out an alert directly to your phone when we go live, so you'll never miss a show again. We collect no identifying information, just the number for delivery. And remember, thank you to all the producers. If you want to become a producer for next week's show, for Monday's show, episode 452, you can head to patreon.com/ccnt or canarycryradio.com/support.
Sorry.
No worries.
All right. What was it? What were you doing?
Support.
CanaryCryRadio.com/support.
Okay, and with that, we're going to be out. Remember, there's all sorts of ways to produce your time, your talent, or your treasure. Send us an email at CanaryCryRadio@gmail.com. And I'm going to skip the rant. Just share the show, post it on your social media, or do something more creative, like, invade a country next to you. And when the world's media asks, why are you doing this? You can say, oh, we're clearing the country of Nazis. We are stopping bioweapon attacks, and we're going to force everybody to listen to Canary Cry News Talk. Wait a second, that's opposite. No, you got to say we're going to stop people from listening to Canary Cry News Talk,
right?
Because they're dangerous for our dystopian technocratic.
Create the Streisand effect.
Exactly, Streisand. That's the thing. Go out and tell your friends not to listen to this podcast.
Start telling everybody, whatever you do, don't.
Yeah, be like, oh, it's like Joe Rogan, You got to be like, oh, it's their misinformation, man. They think that, whatever. You get the deal. All right, that's it. We like to call it rattling cages. If you need any more instructions, here's what you do. Walk right up to him, grab him by the cage, and then you shake
it. The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. Anything to say, Gonz?
Sorry. Apologies.
Nope.
We'll make it up
problem.
Monday.
Not a big deal.
We'll make it up Monday big time.
Yeah. Yes, we will do that. But if you want to keep the party going and you want to, connect with other Canarians, talk about the show, make some friends, do that kind of stuff, go to CanaryCry.Party. Some people have trouble going there, but if you go http://CanaryCry.Party, that'll get you there. And join the Discord server. Join CanaryCry.Community. Those are two different ways that you can communicate and socialize directly with Canarians. And there you go. Keep the party going that way. All right, folks. Thanks for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.
For God's sake, give me a break. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths!